I would now like to introduce Richard Burnett, Chief Executive of the RHA, to say a few words on the past year, which I know has been the most challenging in his 6 years as head of the association. So, Richard, please tell us in your own words what the last few months have been like for you.
Steve, I think the last 6 months have been incredibly difficult for me personally, but it's been incredibly difficult for the nation and particularly for this industry. We've got, hauliers that have supported the pandemic, that have been able to, deliver food, deliver medicines, but we've also had an enormous number of hauliers that have been massively affected, where volume just disappeared through lockdown. Cash flow became an enormous problem, and businesses were absolutely on the edge. We had hauliers, we had family businesses, we had grown men on the phone to me crying about the fact that 40 years of their life was literally disappearing in front of them. So for me, dealing with COVID, and dealing with the industry has been incredibly challenging. Like I said, for me personally, very long days. But equally for the industry, it's been a very difficult time.
Do you feel the government has been listening, or has it been like battering your head against a brick wall?
I think government has been supportive to a point. I think government has done some very good things, like the furlough scheme and the CBILS loan schemes for those that have been able to access it. But I think as we've come out of COVID, or come out of the first phase of COVID, that support has dried up, and it's incredibly difficult trying to get financial support for specific sectors that are on their knees, and I think that's an ongoing challenge.
Do you think that the public now has a better appreciation of what road transport does, and if so, will it last beyond the pandemic?
It's a really interesting question, Steve. I think the general public have definitely got a far better appreciation of how important logistics and supply chains are now. The fact that we have kept food moving, the nation fed, lorry drivers, warehouse staff have become almost hero-like, in terms of the things that they've done right the way through the pandemic. Whether or not that kind of lasts, I think there is a sense, amongst I guess the logistics fraternity that thinks that it won't. But I think it's beholden on all of us to ensure that we take from COVID and we build on the back of that, and ensure that this amazing industry is recognised, supported and valued in the future.
I mean, the pandemic has pushed Brexit to a certain extent off the front pages in the last few months, but the transition period ends in December, just as we could be facing a winter spike in the coronavirus and maybe another lockdown. What are your hopes and fears for the next 6 months?
Well, I think the reality of where we stand today is that the UK is simply not prepared for the transition period. We've got an enormous shortage of customs intermediaries who are going to be having to do those declarations, another 220 million declarations a year, for European trade. Without those people in place, we're not going to be able to produce the paperwork to actually send those vehicles, and it's either going to stop trade, or it's going to create significant problems, whether it's in Kent or around the country, where drivers from Europe are trying to get the appropriate paperwork to get back. So I think we're going to face enormous challenges. Government on this subject are not listening. They are adamant that we're going at the end of the year. And they're certainly not supporting, I think, the industry, giving clarity in terms of the border operating model, giving clarity in terms of how this is all going to work. And I think we are going to be significantly challenged for sure. Come 1/1/21.
Yes, I think you're right there, Richard, but let's say on behalf of the industry, thank you very much indeed for all your efforts. Let's hope government does actually listen on Brexit and many other things. So thank you very much indeed for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.